Thanks for joining me. Well, the data is pretty clear at this point. We are about 5 years away from the end of the boomer retirement surge, and Gen Xers and millennials are taking the spotlight as the next wave of prospective private club members. But here's the thing, they want something that is very different than what the boomers have wanted and valued from private clubs, from amenities to experiences, even to what it means from a status perspective. Jason Becker is the CEO and founder of Golf Life Navigators. If you're not familiar with Golf Life Navigators, it's essentially a matchmaking service for people who are looking to find the perfect golf community. Jason and his team have collected data from tens of thousands of prospective private club members and has given Golf Life Navigators some insights into data as to what tomorrow's club members actually want in a private club. And what they want is shifting dramatically, as I mentioned. We're talking about things like amenities, like car wash and car detailing, dry cleaning pickup, and health and wellness facilities that rival some of the top fitness clubs in your area. So it's a little bit different. They also want real estate integration that some private clubs may or may not have, and in some cases, many clubs haven't even considered. Golf Life Navigators recently released its mid-year buying trend report filled with a lot of great data, and it shows the transition back to pre-pandemic normal. So the levels of interest and membership before the pandemic is happening a lot faster than many people expected. And it would appear that clubs that are not adapting to that or starting to adapt to those trends really risk being left behind. Jason and I caught up recently, and we dove into the data in his mid-year report just to better understand what some of those numbers mean, and also get a sense for what the Gen Xers and the millennials are looking for in a private club. We talked about the changes the clubs are going to need to make if they want to attract those next generation members. Here's my conversation with Jason Becker of Golf Life Navigators. You're listening to Crushing Club Marketing, a podcast for progressive club leaders ready to increase their club's revenue. Time for change begins right now. Well, Jason, thanks so much for being with me in this episode.
Thanks, Ed. Happy to be here.
I think this actually makes you the first, is it three-time guest, or I don't know.
Yeah, but I think so. At least 3 or 4.
Yeah, you got, well, I mean, Golf Life Navigators, you're the insights that you have, the Golf Life insights are so powerful. And when you go through your mid-year report, the things that are in there are really, the insights are pretty powerful, especially if you haven't been thinking about the future and where things are going. But could you just give the listeners a little background about the report, why you did it? Is it something you always do? And just,
Sure.
how it came to be?
Yeah, well, it's a funny story. We're entering our 10th year, believe it or not, at Golf Life Navigators, and invented the search engine in 2017. And I remember starting to build the algorithm and the questions that the consumer would answer. And I was with Dr. Jim Butler of Club Benchmarking at that time. He was kind of helping me think through, and he said, Jason, he said, let's ask a lot more questions. Let's get into motivation. What's motivating someone to even look for a golf, lifestyle? Get really granular with the amenities and whatnot. Because if we can capture people online and capture their data, then in the future, when we have 50, 60,000 of these things completed, we can pretty accurately predict what's going to happen in the future to what the future private club member is saying. And so we did that. So in our questionnaire, it takes the consumer, 10 minutes to complete. Embedded is the algorithm that matches them to clubs, but everything else is data and information gathering. So we've been doing the report now for at least 6 years. So we can see year-to-year trends and different things. But it's become a very, very popular item for marketing directors and club officials across the industry. Folks like yourself, they're just so enamored with what the future private club member is saying today versus surveying our current membership who might have different views on the direction of the club.
Yeah. Well, you're getting a lot of pub on this. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal did something with you, and I know you've had a number of interviews as well,
Mhm.
which is really, I mean, I think it's just so cool, and it's obviously valuable information.
Yeah, it really behooves any club official to use the data as part of their strategic planning. Again, you can survey your existing members and pull information from other resources, but to be able to see what consumers are saying about that specific market in terms of the exceptional golf life that they're looking for really can help, you know, nix a bad idea or validate a good one.
Yeah, got it.
Mhm.
Let's jump into this a little bit. In a majority of the report, though, I mean, this report is really about the combination of real estate and private golf club communities. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, 80% of the folks that use GLN are looking for a golf home as well.
Right, got it. What I always find to be so fascinating, just in general about private clubs and trying to anticipate trends, is the generational aspect.
Hmm.
And so often when you get to, if you think about the more senior members at any club, they have this idea of what club life should look like and what it should be. And it's usually aligns with the values and how they have seen the world. So a boomer would see the world, private clubs differently than a Gen Xer, than a Gen Y, that right. And going through, and in the report, you point out that there are about 5 years remaining in that boomer retirement surge, and after that, it's the Gen Xers that are next.
Yeah, my generation. So, yeah, you have basically 5 more years of 13,000 people a day retiring. So, where we're at in the Sun Belt, I mean, that's a heavy, heavy pipeline of people that are still going to be looking for a club to join and whatnot. You also have a tremendous transfer of wealth occurring to the 55, 56-year old that's looking for a club to join. And they even have different opinions on what the club should be or the direction of it as opposed to the older guard at the club. So, yeah, I give general managers a lot of credit. It's tough because you're managing different segments of people with different expectations of what a club life should be. But the common denominator in all of it is that if you're not investing into the club and the facilities and continually, branding and messaging, you're going to fall behind the other clubs. So it has to happen.
Yeah, and that whole idea though of, for golf communities or all private clubs to really think about, your attention really needs to start shifting or really understanding the needs of Gen Xers and then
Mhm.
even beyond, especially all these clubs that are building and making enhanced capital improvements, to really think through what that's going to look like for this next wave of prospective members.
Yeah, people ask us all the time, our thoughts are on that. Like, how do we posture the club for Gen X? And I think what it's going to come down to is service-based amenities. So there's going to be a lot of us that are work remote. They can, work in Florida and then run out and play golf in the later morning hours. So car detailing, dry cleaning, daycare, those things are all going to be very, very desirable for someone who's still in the workforce and who wants to be at a private club. So every club is going to have tennis and pickleball and other amenities, but what the club does to kind of encapsulate the service-based amenities is going to be a big one, and the healthy lifestyle living, cold plunges, smoothie bars, those types of things.
Right. What I could just imagine some people going, "What?" It's these. Why do we need that? And in that same, I guess in that same spirit, just from a context perspective, I think that the what I loved about the report also is that it's important now because there's this transition period. So we
Mhm.
say 5 years of the boomer, which is like kind of putting them on the clock in a way, but
Right.
right. But if you're thinking about like how are we going to appeal to this next to the next generations, um, it's not like you get to wait 5 years, especially when you consider the, I think as you refer to it as the transition time
Mhm.
for people who are exploring and considering. Can you just talk through, what you found as it relates to that, transition time and what that actually means?
Yeah, transition time we've always seen has been between 12 and 18 months. It's picked up a little quicker in the last year to 9 to 12 months on average. Someone's looking to transition into a golf environment. The problem that we had in the last several years is just the real estate inventory has been so low
Hmm.
and waitlist. Consumers, by and large, don't want to be on a wait list, and especially have to write a deposit check and not be able to use any of the amenities. So now that that's kind of freeing up and going back to the normal golf life as we know it before the pandemic, consumers are starting to move. Making the acquisitions and being able to not buy peak levels, especially in real estate.
Right.
Mhm.
So you just said something that I just want to make sure we capture is that things are going back to pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
You're seeing that right now. I mean, we talked about this a few months ago when we were down at CMAA in Florida,
Mhm.
but you have further like proof of that right now that you're seeing, especially as it relates to residential golf communities.
Yeah, well, real estate's really telling the story. Inventory is doubled, tripled in a lot of markets of golf homes, coming available in these communities. And so, my theory on the whole thing is that the average club in that 75th percentile, which is a majority of private clubs across the country, which is also what our consumers looking for, $65,000 initiation range, right in that area, right? Their average attrition rate year to year is 8 to 10%. So
Mhm.
300 people are there, and they got to replace 25 to 30 of them year to year. Pandemic hit, and the attrition rate at a lot of those facilities dropped to 3 to 4%. So you had less turnover, which caused the waitlist situation. And my theory on it was that the average 80-year-old who had planned on resigning from the club and moving on to something else in 2020 didn't, because of the pandemic, and this was a controlled, safe environment at our club. So why give that up? Well, now that we're past all that, that person is now 85, and now they're exiting. And so that's what's fueling the massive inventory of golf homes, which is going to fuel a higher attrition rate, or back to normal attrition rates for the
Mhm.
clubs. So what's happened is this is completely shifted to a buyer's market for the consumer. So the wait lists have shrunk, if not gone completely, at a lot of clubs. So I don't have to wait now. And the real estate prices have dropped 5 to 10%. So I'm not, paying at a peak level.
Are you seeing that outside of Florida as well? Because I
Yeah.
know that's, I mean, right. Okay.
Mhm.
So across the
Yeah.
Sun Belt and
Primarily, yeah, Sun Belt.
yeah,
Yeah, in every market. Mhm.
yeah, interesting. What I also thought was interesting about the transition time. So I'll be 60 this year. And I was thinking about the fact that, like, I can see where you get serious or maybe in that real transition time in that 12 to 14 months or something like that. But it doesn't mean that like, I'm starting to think about it now.
Mhm.
Even if I don't make a decision for 5 years and exploring and going places to stay. And it's almost like, I guess what I'm getting at is that it's not too early for, golf communities, private golf communities to start thinking about like, where are these people? Where are these people today? They may not be ready, but where are they? What are they looking for? What are they doing? Or what will they want?
Yeah,
When we get to that point, which is, to me, it's like, I'm like, wow, that actually sort of extends this whole transition period, even.
sure. Well, that's what the beauty of the buying trend report is. I mean, it's showing what you as a consumer are saying is the ideal club life for you,
Yeah.
in 12 to 18 months.
Right.
Mhm.
A
Mhm.
couple of the pieces, and then what I'd like to do is just go through some of the, just some of the trends that you're watching and your thoughts about some of the trends that are in the report. But some things that you have in the report is that a majority of GLN users, Golf Life Navigator users, are men.
Mhm.
That they're probably, as they're going through considering what their family or their spouse is going to value as well. They're typically better golfers with a handicap between 10 and 12
Mhm.
in general, and they're interested in full golf memberships. They're usually not like, hey, I want a social membership in a golf community. Is that right?
Yeah, we do believe though that when they're answering the questions, their family or their spouses are there in the back of their mind, and they're answering what would my wife want in the health and wellness facility. So although the data says, yeah, 70 some percent of men completed the questionnaire, we do find that they're answering on behalf of their families.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Hmm.
it's and that makes sense. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
my wife loves to do this, so I better,
Right,
it is so. I just started when I was reading the numbers. I'm like, can I even ever imagine my wife doing this? It's like,
right.
no, she's the CEO. It's like, hey, honey, I found these. No, no, maybe, yes, no. It's like that's the way that's going to work.
Typically what happens at is so my wife's a real estate broker, and if she's got a golf client, he's highly focused on the golf course and the practice facility and whatnot, and then she's focused on the real estate and the lifestyle. So Courtney knows what she's talking about in terms of both of those worlds, so she can help kind of you know navigate them to communities that are going to check all the boxes. But it's, yeah, definitely real estate and lifestyle driven on the females part.
Yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
Let's start there at the, as far as the trends, that integration, you call out the real estate integration. And One of the things that seems obvious, and I think you mentioned as well, is the need for clubs to really partner more closely with real estate in
Mhm.
general, and creating that market awareness. Can you talk a little bit more about that and like what you're seeing, like what's been happening, and maybe what needs to happen in that way?
Right. Yeah. So if we know that 80% of the marketplace has real estate as part of the decision process, it only behooves a club and a membership director to have information handy or connectivity to a partner real estate brokerage for those prospective members. So, as an example, you've got a couple coming to visit the club. You can hand them a market report on real estate that was bought and sold in that community over the last 12 months. So just something very simple, and any real estate agent can send that to a membership director or a club official.
Mhm.
But the models that I'm starting to see pop up, which I completely support, is having an on-site broker and just giving them an office in the clubhouse. And the club doesn't have to monetize real estate because that's a process in itself to get a license as a brokerage. But that broker could pay the club rent for the office for a year, which is based upon a formula of total sales volume, be at every board meeting with a report of who just listed, what just sold, what the market values are compared to the peer communities, be at every member event, just like the golf pro is, the chef, whatnot. And so those models are starting to really take place. I've seen them on the east coast of Florida, even as far up into the Carolinas, where clubs are finally saying, for years we didn't want anything to do with real estate because we had members that were selling and didn't want to upset them and whatnot. But we need to get our arms wrapped around who's buying in here
Right.
and protect the market value of the homes in the community, because it's just part of the decision process.
Yeah. So that and that always comes up, right? It's like, oh, well, we have a member who lives in the community that, we give them all the leads, or we have three, we rotate that, between the three. And you know, I guess it made makes sense when you hear that, but the idea, I mean, how do clubs get around that if they're like, you know what, thanks, but we're gonna actually have a broker from whatever Coldwell Banker or whatever the local, big powerhouse is, and they're gonna office in the club and do the things that you're talking about. Is it odd that if they're not members, are they treated more like as a staff member in that way? I mean,
Sure.
how have you seen that work best, I guess?
Yeah, there's a lot of trepidation, from a general manager to hit that send button an email goes out to all the members that we're going to do this. So you definitely need board support on that. But the few clubs that I've talked to recently who sent the email were very nervous to do it, but nothing really occurred. The members that were selling in there understood. They're just one of a thousand other members in there, and they can't just expect to have all the real estate sales volume that's occurring. So I think it's just one of those things where if you have your board support and the contingency of members, you can move forward and do it. But you got to have the plan in place for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. How in well, one more question, just kind of keep
Mhm.
moving along. But the is there have you seen a good way of selecting that brokerage firm? Like, is there, like, have you, what has been in your opinion, the best way to do that? Because I'd imagine there might be several, groups that would have an interest in that.
Well, so I'm not touting Golf Life Navigators at all, but we have that golf certified real estate agent program. And so these are the real estate brokerages and agents and advisors from across the country who live in golf. They love it. The golf is their passion. And so, like my wife, knows both worlds. So if I was a club official, I would start there in the directory that we have in that market and reach out to that agent or advisor and interview them, bring them in, and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Will you give me an RFP on what it would take to house a couple of agents or broker in here? So
Yeah.
that would be the best way to do it. And then there's agents from Engel and Volker, Sotheby's to Remax that are all
Sure.
golf certified, so they can certainly pick and choose which one they have the best connection with.
Right. Well, and it makes sense. Like, someone who understands the value of a golf community, understands,
Mhm.
like, or the value of a private club community and what that looks like, and is different than someone who's just selling homes around the
Right.
area. And it's like, oh yeah, it's a beautiful golf community. But when you can really sell the community part of that
Mhm.
private golf club, that matters, as far
Right.
as getting those people in. And right, those people who are certified
Mhm.
know that. And yet, your report is also showing a shift of people not wanting to live in, gated communities.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what do you
that's
think that's, and it's not a lot, right? I mean, it's what, 49% prefer to live
right.
outside. I don't know what had the trend been. Was it quite a bit higher?
Before COVID, I was screaming on your platform and others that this is a cause for concern. If half of the marketplace was didn't want to live in a gated golf community, then if I was a gated golf community, I'd be really concerned about that because you can't have too many non-resident members. When you get to the point where you've got to pass a $15 million capital improvement plan on the club's amenities, are those non-resident members going to vote yes for that?
Mhm.
So COVID hits, everybody wants to now live in a gated golf community. The data dropped down to like 38% of the marketplace said, I don't want to live inside the gates. So you had a good majority that wanted to. Now that we're moving past it, we've definitely seen this year that number tick back up. I think it's at 49% now. So
Mhm.
why don't they want to live in a gated golf community? I've heard varying responses of, well, I want to be closer to the shopping and dining or the beach, or just don't want that hefty HOA bill. I'm
Mhm.
just not ready for that, or I want to be in a condo and all they have a single family home. So those are the kind of the challenges that the gated golf communities are up against. But yeah, it's kind of a scary trend if you're a club official for the future.
I was reading something else recently, just generational stuff, and it kind of made me laugh as it relates to private clubs, but how a lot of the millennials are just the idea of exclusivity is sort of a turnoff. I mean, and it's such an inclusive generation that,
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, if you had a crystal ball, if you were going to, put money on Vegas with this, do you think that number reverses, or do you think it will continue to grow as far as the number of people who are interested in living outside the gated communities?
I think that it'll decline um, over time. I think one of the big reasons why the 56-year-old is saying they don't want to live in a gated golf community is there's a misconception that the average homeowner is 80. in those
Sure.
communities, and they want to be around younger people.
Yeah.
So I've had people actually compare it to Del Boca Vista in the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's parents live in that, the crazy community and all these
Yeah.
political issues and whatnot. And even though that's not the case, that's the perception anyway. So,
Right.
but as we continue to get younger with members, I think that trend will start to reverse, and more people want to live inside the gates because they have people of their cohort that are in there.
Which goes back and connects to what you're saying about, the professionals, the real estate professionals who are certified, that understand that, because they're going to know all the people that are there. And
Right.
they're like, oh yeah, let me tell you about, the Johnsons, the Smiths, and, Harrisons, and blah blah blah, right? I mean, they know, and they can help to, clear up any other misconceptions that a prospective buyer might have about that as well.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. There's a club in Naples that had an on-site real estate brokerage for several years, and they're doing on average about 60 to 70 million dollars a year in sales volume.
Wow.
But they were at every member event, they were at every board meeting, really ingrained into the club's culture. It was just like another extension of the club. President came in and said, "Well, I got a better idea. We're gonna sign with another brokerage," and that brokerage was not present at any of the member events and was really kind of just there. And their sales volume the years after were 20 to 25 million.
Wow.
So think about that. That's how many members that sold decided to use an outside brokerage because they didn't have a relationship with the new folks.
Yeah.
So it really does work, and to your point, the more that they're ingrained with the members, the more connectivity they can have with the prospective member, and ultimately get them, to join the club as well.
Yeah. Um, Sorry, tangential question just popped into my head. So when there's a broker that's officing on premises, what happens if a realtor wants to sell a home or show a home in that gated community? Typically, they still show it, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think they just go through the broker though, and with a visit, yeah, they certainly can sell in the community, but that broker that's on site will be there to kind of answer the questions about you know the real estate that's available in the club and make an official introduction to the membership director.
Yeah,
So it's
got
just
it.
a lot more professional experience for the consumer as well.
Yeah, got it.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the lifestyle amenities. And some of the stuff that was in there's is not all that shocking. The at least when you talk to a lot of people in the industry, health and wellness, food and beverage, pool operations, the health and wellness stuff, the increase. I think you cited a 6% increase so far in 2025, and that kind of fascinated me in a way. So I just did a little Google, asked the Google machine. Global health and fitness market is projected to reach 111 billion in 2025, with a 9.5% compounded annual growth rate. So, I
Mhm.
mean, that interest in high end gyms, as well as the interest in health and wellness, I mean, it's corresponding as
Yeah.
well. I mean, and from what you can tell, like, is that prospective member or resident interested? Like, they want nice stuff. They don't want just like a little room with some free weights and a solo
Right.
flex machine, right? I mean, it's
Yeah. Yeah. No, they want the ability to have a nice gym and organized classes like yoga and boot camps and whatnot. PT facilities and massage and spa are starting to get very popular with the bigger clubs as well. So just all of these service amenities within health and wellness in general are very, very popular.
what will you look for as far as trends? I mean, what sort of has your interest in this category of food and beverage, pool operations, and health and wellness? I mean, your number is 49% consider it important when it's as it relates to food and beverage, and 44% value the clubhouse pools with F&B service.
Hmm.
Is that like, when you think about that area, what do you think will happen? What are the things you'll look for with those numbers?
When I think about it, I think that over the last 7 years, it's been very consistent. So there's really been no major shifts and lack of interest for those
Mhm.
amenities or more. But when you know that one out of every two members or prospective members that visit has that in the back of their mind, you certainly have to have the information readily available and or marketing it or messaging it online
Mhm.
for the club's website. So things like a sports bar setting or wine tasting club, kid friendly restaurant. If you have these types of things, it's definitely important to be showcasing because it
Mhm.
makes a difference.
And it connects to the community too, and living
Right.
in the gates and that whole thing. We had a client say, and I always think about this as it relates to dining at clubs, is that, it's got to be great. I really think if you want people to come and enjoy that space and build community, you have to have memorable food. But he goes, I don't need our restaurant, our food to be the best in town. I just want it to be our members' favorite place in town.
Right.
And I thought, man, that really captures it. It's got to be, the food has got to be to a point where it's really good, really reliable, and people, it's their favorite place. Why not go there?
Yep. And so you and I have laughed about this all the time. How many clubs websites do we see with empty dining rooms and empty
Right.
bars?
Yeah.
You have to have people laughing in present.
Yeah.
Tough pictures to stage, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. We just did a webinar or webinar the other day on websites. And we talked about that too. And just said,
Hmm.
you're right. You and I talk about that quite a bit. It's just let the people know what it looks like at your club to be a
Right.
member there.
Hmm.
Some of your golf specific stuff was really interesting to me as well. And I thought that one is that there's an increase in people who want structured tee times.
Yeah.
We've got a client that is all about, flaunting the fact that you don't need a tee time, just show up and play. But why do you think there's an increase, and it's not a lot. I think it's 5%,
Yeah.
in that demand. It doesn't seem like a lot. Maybe it is in the big picture, but what do you think is behind that?
Well, I think a lot of northern facilities where these folks are coming from have no tea time systems, and so it can be frustrating to show up on a Saturday at 9 a.m. and there's you know four other groups waiting to tee off as well. So that it kind of has its positives and negatives, but at the end of the day, knowing that they can book a tea time 2 weeks out, they're flying into Scottsdale and they got their tea time is part of a structured liberal system that where all members have a fair shot means something to
Right.
the buyer for sure.
Is that, I just started thinking about the average age. What are we at? Like, would you say
56.
56 to 57 years old,
Mm-hmm.
right? And which is different than 65 to 67 for sure, where you've just got all day and what's it matter? But if you were younger than that, you've got stuff you got to be able to do. And the
Right.
idea of like having this grab bag of maybe I get on fast, maybe I don't, probably doesn't fly with a lot of people too. Don't you think that
Correct.
younger set?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the tea time systems are app based, and everybody's got their iPhone with their apps to book a tea time. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that that's a growing trend. Between now and practice facilities, always been the top most desired golf amenity. But I think the other bigger one we are seeing is uh, interest in reciprocation at clubs.
Oh,
So
right.
folks are thinking that's a pretty cool system, right? I'm a member of a club, and for from the end of May to October, I can go play other peer clubs for a cart fee.
Right.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So it's gaining a lot of traction.
It's, you start to put all these pieces together of this profile and these people. And that is a way, that we are talking about exclusivity a little bit earlier. Reciprocity is a great way to sort of neutralize that.
Hmm.
It's like, in fact, I just found I'm so stupid sometimes, but I'm like, I just found out in my town there are other private clubs, and someone's like, oh, you can charge your guest fees back to your club. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't get on there whenever I want, but if I'm out with a guest or I have a guest or a guest or I'm the guest with someone else, it might make it easier to say, hey, come on over. Let's play over here today. Or let's,
Right.
it's just similar to reciprocity in some way. I mean, it's not true reciprocity, but yeah,
Well,
interesting
it goes
idea.
back to the socialization part of this too. In Florida, anyway, a lot of the men's and ladies groups travel together. So there'll be 12 of them that'll go and play a totally different facility, and then go do lunch afterwards, and it just becomes a really fun socialization opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting. The home
Hmm.
and home stuff, even you can do with couples, and
Yeah.
we have friends. We talk about that all the time.
Hmm.
So I found it interesting the increase in people who are walking, which kind of to me corresponds with the fitness and and the moving around. But that high number of this is, and maybe this is part of it. I mean, you're a golf professional. The It corresponds with that 10 to 12 handicapper, but the number of people where the practice facility means so much. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
almost twice, well, more than twice as much interest in that than so many other things, including
Hmm.
reciprocation for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I implore membership directors all day long to take your client out to the practice facility and have the golf professional there as a chance encounter, with
Yeah.
them, to tell them about, how they view the practice facility, the clinics that they have, and any sort of capital improvements they're going to make for it. But again, our average user is a 10 to 12 handicap, plays 3 to 4 days a week, and is 56. So, they want good practice. They might not have time to go out and play 18 holes, but they want to, they got an hour to go spend at the range. They want it to be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm that guy. Aside from the age, I'm that guy, man. I love that whole thing.
Mhm.
So, still important, especially in the Golf Life Navigator universe. I mean, that's why people are looking. They love the game. They're looking for a place to live where they can go and play and enjoy that more.
Mhm.
Um, the last trend that I'd be interested to get your take on is just, we're watching the clubs within the club, those special interest groups, almost like,
Right.
how strong, and I don't know if that means like mahjong or other things, or is it, I don't know if those are other, pickle leagues and things like that. But when you think about that sort of thing, um, is that something that you would say, hey, it's really important for clubs to really think about what opportunities there are to have a club within a club?
Oh yeah, I would definitely have a page on my website dedicated to it, even with contact information to whoever's leading those clubs, whether it's a car club or travel or beach wine tasting, whatever it might be. Those are all very, very important things to the consumer, and that's really where the whole eHarmony thing comes about with all of this. When
Right.
we built GLN, we kind of replicated a dating website app. So, user A is the club, they put in what they're looking or what they have to offer, and user B is the consumer, and they put in what they're looking for. So, same thing here. If a membership director can see what social interests this couple has before they come and visit the club, it just creates a whole series of conversations and to bring people to the club for lunch that are part of those same groups of like-minded interests. So if a club does not have the ability to capture that ahead of time, I definitely would have it as on an intake form if they become a new member. Hey, of all these things, what are you really interested in? And we'll make sure to introduce you to the folks that are part of those groups.
Yeah. So it's the idea, like if you have a good community, you can really amplify that and grow it by, in the eHarmony example, identifying and spotting the people that share that same interest and passion.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you're only going to help long-term retention and happiness at that point. So it's a must.
yeah, interesting.
Mhm.
The it seems as you think about the next, I don't know, next year, next several years, are there what other things will you really be looking at, and what's your sense? I know, as you mentioned, we talked earlier this year, just about things sort of returning back to pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
I mean, we've had that conversation several times, but are there other trends or things that you're looking at after this mid-year report that maybe you weren't considering before?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year with where the report finalizes for 25, and if these trends continue to take, which we believe they will. But it's really by the crystal ball. It's the service based amenities that are going to start popping up at the clubs,
Mhm.
and that's going to be the differentiator between one club and the next for a consumer that could ultimately land that new buyer. So for the clubs that are listening, I think that that's something that they really need to start thinking about. And it's tough because that entails having more humans on staff to operate car detailing or dry cleaning, daycare, etc. So, but it's definitely the wave of the future for the
Yeah.
younger member.
Yeah. I mean, there's so, we recently recorded an episode, talking about just the importance of having even the right people and
Mhm.
appealing to the right people. And what has been a very, in hospitality, a challenging business to have families in, but that's the other part of all this stuff. And you can have the great amenities but if you don't have people and the right people, then that can obviously have a big impact as well. I did want to get your perspective on flexible membership models. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing more of that in general, as far as what clubs are offering, and that they want people to know that they have? Does it go beyond golf and social? I mean, and if so, have you seen anything really noteworthy in that arena?
The only thing that I've started to see is that clubs, rightfully slow, got aggressive with pricing. So initiation fees increased over the last several years because of the demand. Well, now that demand is lessening, you know as well as I do, you can't go backwards on your initiation fees.
Hmm.
So how do you keep those fees yet still have people come in? And I've seen a couple of models where you can pay over the course of 3 years or 2 years. So
Hmm.
pay half this year, half next, just so you can keep that same initiation fee, um, but continue to bring people in. So that's really the only model I've seen. I haven't seen really any sort of ancillary memberships outside
Hmm.
of still pushing the full golf, because at the end of the day, that's what the club needs the most, is that full golf member.
Right. I've been thinking about the Meadows in Sarasota closing,
Hmm.
um, and I don't know enough of that. I don't know anything about that story other than that it happened, that they filed for bankruptcy. But the one thing, and I had a post in LinkedIn about this as well, which is it's like it reminded me of the boiling frog syndrome. That if you put a frog in water and you bring it to a boil, they won't jump out; they'll just die.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and not so much to comment on this exact situation, but it feels to me like we're at this stage in many ways. Maybe we've been here for the last several years, and even pre-pandemic for sure, of like, you have to start shifting. You have to start addressing some of these things that you're pointing out and acknowledge that they're real,
Mhm.
or else you're going to end up being the boiling frog.
Yeah, I mean, club benchmarking does a great job of that, in looking at a club's financial position and determining, hey, you're going down a path where you're not going to be able to fund the depreciation of the club's assets. And so how do we get ahead of that? And it becomes very trying for the leadership staff, because okay, do we pass the hat around to all the current members and assess? That's not going to be set well.
Sustainable. Yeah.
Um, you can increase initiation fees, but that's not enough to combat it either. So then you start looking at bank notes and whatnot, or you end up just shifting over to a concert, golf, Peter Nanula, and selling.
Right.
So the club. So yeah, but it all comes down to understanding the financial health of the club. Just because the club has $1 million in reserves doesn't mean that it's financially healthy. If it's got 22 million in depreciation coming up over the next 10 years.
Right.
So that's why, for the consumers listening on this, it's very important to meet with a finance chairman and just understand where the club is. It's a great learning exercise too. Most consumers don't realize how private clubs operate, and they're non for profit, and it's all about the dues money. So, meet with that person and get a better understanding. And if the club has invested, that's great. Am I on the hook for a capital contribution at initiation? Or if it hasn't invested, why not? And if not, when? Because you're going to have to compete.
Yeah, I love that. When we talked in February, you mentioned that same thing about meeting with, finance, either the
Mhm.
CFO of the club or the finance chair, or whatever. And it's such a better question than, do you have any assessments coming up?
Yeah, right.
It's like really, digging, and it's a totally fair question. Ever since you mentioned that earlier this year, I thought, man, if I'm joining another club, that's the first thing. That and governance. I want to know like how the club is being run for sure. But
yeah, the financial investment of the club and in our motivation data has picked up a couple points this year. So it means, I think, more to the consumer than it ever has on the financial health of this property. And because if they're going to buy a home inside the gates, it's going to be reflective of their market value of their home. So they got to make sure that the club is financially healthy.
huge, huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge. Yeah. Wow, Jason, I really appreciate the insights and for
Yeah.
spending this time with us in this episode. Just some great stuff. If you haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen if people haven't seen this report, where can they find it?
Well, if you want to link it, Ed, to your post, feel free to do so. You have the URL for it. I'm
Yeah,
happy to share it.
good idea.
Yeah.
um, and hey, I look forward to talking to you again soon. And I'm sure at the end of the year, we'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to talk more
Oh,
as
yeah.
the year shapes up. So thanks again.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you for listening. If you find episodes like this helpful, be sure to share it and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're using. Until next time, keep crushing your club marketing.